Hello everyone, I am Jack and I'm back, and let me show you what I've done today. I have spent about 5 hours solid sanding on this car. It has black gel coat on it and it was rather rough if you look at my last video. So I went off and sanded mostly on this side and got it from rough to somewhat smooth. And so if you look at this, what I did was I sanded it with a 16-inch flat board with 40 grit sandpaper, which is pretty coarse. And so the idea was to get this as flat as possible and smooth, but again, with 40 grit, it's going to be have a lot of sanding scratches. But it doesn't matter because the intent is to put another coat of gel coat on top of this. So if you look at this, the high spots are sanded and the real high spots are where there's white. And what happened is the surface underneath was so high that when I sanded it flat, it sanded through the black and down into the white underneath in spots. The other areas that are the dull black or gray are areas that got sanded flat with the 40 grit sandpaper. The areas that are still glossy are the areas that are so low that the flat surface couldn't hit it. So in other words, the high surface, the sander, because it's flat, went and got all this flat, but this is a little depression there and the flat area can't go down into that depression. When you're doing this work, you have to decide at what point are you going to stop. I could keep on sanding the surfaces until I get rid of all of these glossy areas, but that is a whole lot of work. The other thing that I see is, there's also areas right here that I've sanded through the black down to the white. If I keep doing that, chances are I will sand through the white down to the fiberglass. I don't want to do that. I don't want to expose the fiberglass if there's any way possible not to. Now there are a few areas like right there, that tan area is where it's down to the fiberglass. Not a big deal because I'm putting gel coat on it, so was my intent, was to put gel coat on the fiberglass. So right now I think I've got about the right balance between high spots that I sanded that are white exposed, the gray area, which is the majority of this, and then the black areas where it is still a little bit low. So my next step is to put another layer of gel coat on it. Now, unlike this where I used the chip brush and it made it relatively uneven, I got a better brush right here. Okay, not great, but way better than the chip brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try sanding with the chip brush. I'm going to try applying the gel coat with this better brush, see how smooth I can get it, and hopefully I won't have to use the aggressive 60 grit sandpaper. I can use something a little bit more gentle and finer grit and get it down to a level surface without sanding through. This area back here, I thought I had it almost perfect. I was sanding on it and once again I sanded through. So I've come to the conclusion that that 60 grit is just too aggressive. So I've got to find a balance between what I'm trying to do. The other thing is, obviously for me to sand through there, that had to be a high spot. So the idea is if I put another layer of gel coat on, it'll raise up the other part. And when I sand, I won't sand through there. If I do sand through, I'm looking at other alternatives. Like I mentioned before, I might end up just, having it wrapped. So then these areas won't matter as long as this is flat and smooth, the wrap will cover it up. Now I also, since previously I had not used the 16-inch with the 40 grit, I just wanted to get the area kind of smooth. When I did, I saw that this side was somewhat wavy. Now I did notice that this top area right here had very little wave to it. And if you look, I went ahead and hit it with 40 grit just so I could verify what I thought. And sure enough, there might be some, areas that aren't completely flat, but you can see there's not any glossy areas there. All right, but if you go down to this next flat area, you can see that the 40 grit hit the high spots, but there's still some low spots. Now, if you look, you can see the 40 grit kind of scratched it. So what that means is, even though these are low spots, they're not very low. I didn't have to hit this in fact, I hit it lightly because when I came over here and sanded this with 40 grit, I used a lot of pressure, and you can see it left some deep sanding scratches. I didn't want to leave deep sanding scratches over here, so I lightly sanded it with the 40 grit. And again, with that 16-inch flat board, that means this should be close to really, really, really flat by the time I'm done. Now, what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to use my brush and brush on a coat of Gelcoat, and with each coat that I do with the Gelcoat, the surface, even with the chip brush, the surface ends up getting better and better each time. So I'm thinking that with the new paintbrush and the Gelcoat, this should be the last that I need, assuming I don't sand through again. The other area right here, I can't tell. I can see 60 grit. See the little pigtails there? That's 60 grit. So there's some 60 grit, but I think I hit this with something finer than 60 grit. The reason I think is because if you look back here, there's some gloss right there. And the 60 grit and the 120 grit really didn't put any gloss on it. Same with the 220. So my memory's not that great. I might have hit this with the 600 and then the polish to see what this looked like. Now, what I see is it doesn't look bad at all. If there's any low spots, there's hardly any. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit this with the 40 grit just to identify if there are any major high spots. I don't think there are. And then I am going to hit it with 60 grit on the DA just to rough it up enough so that when I put the next layer of Gelcoat on there, it will be even closer to the surface that I want. This I know is 60 grit, so that's how I know that's not 60 grit. This is what it looks like if I just use 60 grit. I haven't touched this with anything except for 60 grit with the DA. So that's what it would look like. It would look like kind of dull gray. So the fact that that's got a little gloss meant I hit it with something smoother. And if I did that, then I probably hit it with the 600 and then the polish to get the gloss there. But I wanted to look at this area and see if it looked pretty good, and again, it does. I'm sure all of it can be better, but this is going to be good enough. Again, my goal is to have a 20-footer. I think the way this is, it's going to be at least a 10-footer or something like that. I have a lot of work left to do here, but I just sand until I'm through sanding, and so that's where this is right now. Now, the reason why I only sanded for 5 hours is because transmission went out on my blue C8 Corvette. It literally came up with a message in the dash that said service transmission unable to shift, and it literally would not shift out of park. So we ended up having to get some wheel dollies, jack up the car, put the dollies underneath it. It was parked over here, and it actually happened the other night, and I had to get a call for a ride to get home because it was stuck there in front of the neighbor's shop. Luckily, I don't think they were there, and so that wasn't an issue. I did put a note on it with my number in case they did need it. But anyway, so now I've got a C8 sitting here that won't go out of park. Starts, runs, it just won't go anywhere. So those of you that aren't familiar with the C8s, they've had transmission issues. I'm hoping it's just a computer issue, the transmission controller. I did a lot of research online, and that is potentially the issue, so I'm hoping that's the case. But now I got to get it towed because it literally won't move. All right, so I spent half a day moving over there. Luckily, one of my neighbors here had the wheel dollies and a floor jack, and we were able to get it. And then we got his truck and he drove over the curb. We had a tie down tied to the wheel, and he drove through the grass there. I was worried because it's been raining and this is pretty muddy, but he had a dually four-wheel drive, so it had no problem. It did dig some ruts over there, but no big deal. All right, so tomorrow it's supposed to rain. I'm going to try to pull this car partially out so that I can work on it even in spite of the rain. I've got a tarp I'll put over it. The windows are out because Duntoff took them out for some strange reason. I don't know why they did that, but they did. So the windows are out, so I can't close it up. But again, should have a couple of tarps big enough to cover it up. So I'm going to go ahead and put everything up for the night, and then tomorrow I'll come and hit it again. I'll be doing some gel coat and sanding. So my goal is to I'm working my way around the car. I'm going to do the doors next. I have some white gel coat I need to get rid of before it goes bad, so I will probably do those in white, so it's going to look kind of funny with everything black except for that. But no big deal, because then I'll put some black gel coat on after that. So my goal is to have a car that is a semi-flat black all the way around gel coat if I can. It may end up with spots, high spots, low spots, that kind of stuff. Actually, not any high spots, but low spots. I'm sorry, not any low spots, but high spots. There we go. Where I'll end up sanding through and you'll see the white. But no big deal. Again, I'm trying to get it to a 20-footer. And I'll figure out what to do about those white spots at that point. All right. Like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.